Hey YouTubers, it's Valerie with Money Mindset Coach, and today I want to talk about June Cleaver, America. Me and my boyfriend watch Leave It to Beaver on the Roku channel all the time. And so I have seen many of the episodes, and I gotta tell you, the show started, I think, in 1957. I was born in 1958. So, when that show was actually running and actually on, I was too young to remember. But because I was born in 58 and basically had those young years in the 1960s, I know what my mom was like. She wasn't wearing a dress. My grandmother wore a dress. She never wore pants. She always wore a dress. But she wasn't walking around with pearls. It was just a house dress. It wasn't like June Cleaver all dressed like she was ready to go somewhere. My mom never dressed like that. My mother dressed like a regular woman. She, she dressed nice when she went to church, but she wasn't going to look like that when she was cleaning the house. And I really think that was Hollywood. I don't think there were a lot of women who were dressing like June Cleaver. I thought that was totally Hollywood. But with watching the show, though, I see some things that we're definitely missing now in normal family life. And I think some would be actually good to come back. But there would be definite things that are so much better now than what they used to be, Basically, I'm going to be talking about what people miss about June Cleaver, America. If you have not been here before, I am Valerie. I'm with Money Mindset Coach. I talk about frugal things. I talk about society kind of things, minimalism, how to save money, how to spend money, how to budget. A lot of the things that are just near and dear to my heart. And with watching Leave It to Beaver, I've just been thinking about this for a long time. But what some people will miss about June Cleaver America is stability. Two-parent households, clear roles, routine family life. I mean, very seldom in that show did you see them in a restaurant. They were eating dinner every night in the dining room, because to me, if you have a dining room, why not eat dinner in there? Too many, I tell you, there's too many. I was a real estate agent for a long time, and there were people who looked at dining rooms like, what do I use that for? That's because people are not sitting down to dinner as a family anymore. And I gotta tell you, when I was married, my ex-husband at the time, if it would have been up to him, we would have been sitting in the living room with TV trays watching TV. No, I don't want that. I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted us to come together as a family that one time during the day to talk about our day. Talk about what happened. And I actually learned something from Dr. Dobson. He actually talked about how to get your kids talking. Well, it's one thing if you had girls, but if you had boys, too easily could you say, how was your day? Fine. Well, that's not enough for me. And basically I learned to ask, what was the best thing about your day? What was the worst thing about your day? And a lot of times, maybe they didn't have anything good that happened, but they probably had something that was not great. Would they talk about that? Yeah. And that started the conversation going. So I learned that. But dinner around the table was something that I grew up with, and I wanted my kids to grow up with it too. There was a community cohesion, stronger neighborhood ties, a sense of shared norms. When I was a little girl, my mom and dad had bought kind of an inventory home, tract home or whatever you want to call it. And I only remember the outside of this house because of home movies. Don't remember a thing about the inside of the house, and the home movies that my dad took were not inside the house. And I kind of wish that he had done that, but he didn't. And my mother in that neighborhood went to a thing called a coffee klatch. And it was women who were neighbors. They brought in desserts. They had coffee. They probably had tea. Who knows? Maybe there was some alcohol involved. I don't know. Probably not, because they were bringing their kids. The kids would play in the backyard, and the moms would get together, and they would have that social time, which to me, I really hated that went away, because when women stay at home and take care of their kids, what's the number one thing that happens? They feel isolation. They feel like the only person that they're talking to are kids. And you need adult stimulation. You need adult conversation. Talking to kids all day can drive you a little crazy. And usually, I would wait for my husband to get home, and then I was just wanting to talk to him. Well, he was coming home from work from a long day, and he just wanted, back then, he wanted to sit and read the paper and just kind of decompress. My decompress when I have been working is a lot of times it's in my car. I listen to music. Maybe I pray. Maybe I talk to myself. But there's times for decompression. But at one point in time, my husband at the time lived or worked less than a mile away from our house. And we had 3 little boys, 2 years apart. He didn't have any time in the car to decompress and be by himself. I was wanting his company. I was wanting to tell him what happened. If there was something going on with one of the kids and there was discipline that needed to be done, I wanted to share that with him. And, a lot of times I just hit him with way too much. And I regret that. I really do. In a June Cleaver, what we miss about June Cleaver America is less tech, simpler times, fewer screens, more face-to-face interaction. Back in June Cleaver's time, there were no cell phones. They had one television, just one. And they didn't even watch it that much. And I think I saw an episode the other day where in their bedroom, I saw a television, which blew me away because I had never seen that before. But that wasn't until Wally and the Beaver were older. When they're little, no, there wouldn't have been a TV. The only time they brought a TV in was on a TV cart, a portable TV, when they were sick. That was it. That was the only time you would have seen a TV in a bedroom. Even June and Ward's bedroom probably didn't have a TV in it. Home-centered life. Emphasis on domestic care, meals at home, children being raised by a parent. Yeah. No after-school program. No daycare. Kids came home from school and mom was there. She was there with a snack, she was in the midst of making dinner, or maybe she was ironing or something. But there was dinner, and everybody knew that there would be dinner. The other thing that I kind of noticed about things now is, and this was just happened a few weeks ago when my granddaughter was visiting, but my son, his wife, and the 3 kids, we were going to go out to eat, and I was going to go too. And it was a 15 or 20 minute conversation to figure out where everybody wanted to go. And they were taking into consideration the 2 oldest, who are 17 and 14, about where they wanted to go. And the more I started thinking about that, the more I was like, oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I was just thrilled that we were going to eat anywhere. And it was always up to my parents. I never had any say in where we went. No, I was just thrilled we were going out to eat. And then I would get my normal shrimp or hamburger or chicken. Those were my 3 meals because I knew I liked all of them. I knew I could eat all of them because my dad, oh my gosh, if he was paying for a meal, you better eat it. You better eat it. This is how it was when we went out to eat. And this was back when you got a basket of crackers. Remember that? Everybody got water. You didn't have to ask for water. Water just came. So they give you the glass of water. My dad wouldn't let us drink it because that would take away from our appetite. The cracker basket would come. I really wanted to have some. No, that would take away from our appetite. We weren't paying for the crackers. We weren't paying for the water. He wanted us to only eat what he was paying for. And that was the truth. And I wish they still had cracker baskets. I think I would thoroughly enjoy that as an adult. I think I would. Gender rules. Women had little autonomy, limited job options, no legal access to credit without a husband. That seems kind of crazy now that you think about it. Yeah. You were tied to your husband. Back in June Cleaver days, he was the one that probably got the loan on the house, got the loan on the car. I never even asked my mom about that. And I remember when I got my first checking account, my mom had to be on it. I couldn't get it by myself. I had to get it with her on it. I think until I was 18. And that was relatively new for a woman to even have a checking account of her own. This is bad. Racial inequality. We all know what the 60s were like. There was segregation with black people and white people. And I'm so glad that it is not like that. Not to say that racism doesn't still exist, because it does, but not near like what it did back then. And I know from working in real estate, there was a point in time, and I think some of it may still exist, but there are houses that had HOAs that actually specified in the HOA that when somebody bought a house in that subdivision and they wanted to sell it, they could not sell it to a black person. Now, when I was in real estate and I read all of the covenants for HOA, that was not a part of it. But at one point in time, it was. And that just blows me away that that would even be the way that it was. Totally and completely wrong. Education. I think that that's why there were some black colleges that admitted black students, because they couldn't go to the other universities. They weren't accepted. They weren't invited. That's just not good. Oh gosh, this is a big one. If you were gay back then, that was something you didn't mention. You didn't talk about it. It wasn't accepted. And I mean, there were some really horrible things that could have happened way back then. You could be arrested. You could be institutionalized. You could be socially exiled. And I am so glad that it is not like that today. You cannot help who you love. You just can't. And why shouldn't someone who is gay be married just like anybody else? Why should that be denied to them? I don't understand that. The other thing is, when it comes to mental health, there was a real stigma, and there is some stigma still attached to mental illness, but now it's much more widely accepted. Talking to a counselor, talking to a psychiatrist or a psychologist is much more accepted now than what it used to be. There was a real stigma there. People were called crazy, like they should be in insane asylums or something, and that is just not the case. Not today, and that is a good thing. Conformity over authenticity, non-traditional lifestyles, ideas, identities were discouraged or punished. So if you were different, that could be a problem. And now it's like so many more people are widely accepted, and I think that's a good thing, because I think when it comes to, if you go back to the Bible and you look at what Jesus did, he was accepting of the tax collectors, of the prostitutes, of the people that maybe were different and were not considered normal or acceptable. Jesus didn't care about that. And I think that modern day religion has kind of forgotten how Jesus was and how he cared for everyone and accepted everyone. It's like, why are we having a problem with this? Why? Because if Jesus was walking on the earth today, he would not be being the way that some people still are. And there are still people who do not, they could be considered racist, they could be homophobes. There are things that, it's sad. It is sad. But these are just a few things that I have kind of observed with watching June Cleaver. I do think that if there were more two-parent families, maybe the husband goes to work, if the wife stays at home. I don't see anything wrong with that. I really, really don't. There is nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with that at all. And if women want to do that, and I think now there's a word for it, a trad wife, being traditional wife. Yeah. But what can we learn from June Cleaver? We could value caregiving as real work, regardless of gender, regardless of who is doing the caregiving. There are house husbands, there are men who stay home and their wives go to work. That's a little bit not what the norm has been, but that is happening. Creating stronger community ties, reducing overwork and burnout culture. As Americans, we are so stressed out. We don't take the vacations. We think we're going to be replaced. If workers need to be appreciated. They need to be appreciated. They need to know that if they take time off, they're not going to have to worry about having a job to come back to. They really don't need that. Building more predictable family support systems. There is a thing where I think the statistic is men and women, couples who both work outside the home, one parent in heterosexual relationships, the woman, she does 60% of the household chores while still working outside the home. That's a lot. They even call it the second shift. When she gets off work, when she gets home, is she going to have to cook dinner? Why can't he cook dinner? Why can't they get carry out one night? It's like, hello. There are other things to be considered because she's tired too. Focusing on presence over performance. Sitting at the dinner table, no cell phones, no computers, no nothing. Just sitting at the table and talking about your day. I made that an absolute when my kids were growing up. That was something that we did every night. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. I got asked 4 times a day, what's for dinner, what's for dinner, what's for dinner, what's for dinner? And there were times where the thought of thinking of what was for dinner was exhausting. And then it was cooking it. And then it was them liking it or not liking it. When I was growing up, my mom made what she made, period. And we either ate it or we didn't. And that was that. She was not a short order cook. She did not try to only make the things that most of the kids liked. What I tried to do is I had 3 boys. I was trying, my ex-husband, my husband at the time, would eat anything. He was really great that way. He wasn't picky at all. And so whatever I made, he would eat it. And the boys, what I was trying to do is to get 2 of the 3 of them. It was a real home run if all 3 of them loved something. But what I tried to do was come up with 10 meals to rotate. And they were all pretty much things that they liked to eat. I felt strongly about that because when I was growing up, I didn't have that choice. If my mom decided to make pea soup and I hated pea soup, well, that's what was for dinner. Yeah, I went to bed hungry sometimes because you weren't getting anything else. Now, what we would do, and I think this is a good thing that we did, But if we did have something new, which I like to introduce something every once in a while that was new to kind of break up the monotony, the rule was they had to try it. They couldn't just say, I don't want that. No, they had to try it. And they might end up finding out that they actually liked it. But if they didn't, they could have a peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, or something. But they would eat. They weren't going to go to bed hungry. I didn't believe in that. I also didn't believe in making them sit there and finish their meal like my mom and dad did, my dad especially. I remember sitting there. I remember one time doing that, but my brother told me the last time I talked to him, there were many times where I sat at the table until bedtime with food on my plate because I didn't finish my food. I wasn't going to do that to my kids. I wouldn't do that. The other thing, this off of dinner, but this was another thing that we tried, and I really think that it worked, is especially when they got to be older and they were teenagers, we would have Friday movie night. And there were times where they didn't seem to like the movie that we were going to watch. And I would say to them, give it a half hour. If you don't like the movie after giving it a half hour, you don't have to watch it. Most of the time, they would watch a half hour of the show, and they'd end up watching the whole thing. And I was really happy about that because I loved Friday movie night. I really, truly did. And those are just a few things that we did. I mean, we didn't do everything right, but I think we did some things right. And, we enjoyed it. And I was home doing the June Cleaver thing for 10 years. I did that. I did it for 10 years. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked it. I like working too. I like making some money. But yeah, I loved being home, taking care of the home, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, taking the kids to school. I loved all of that. Absolutely all of it. So I did do a June Cleaver thing for a while, and I've seen the other side of it. So anyway, if you're still here and you have found value in this video, I have a lot more videos to come. I have a whole lot of videos that I have done, and I would love it if you would comment, like, subscribe. There's a notification bell. If you could hit that, that will let you know every time that I have a new video, so you won't miss one. So anyway, like I always say, use it up, wear it out, make it do without. Till next time, bye.